Well, good evening there, and welcome to another NTX live stream. So, just before I start, I should put this clip on because people have complained about the popping of this microphone, and I have got this anti-pop guard, so I should really use it, shouldn't I? So hopefully you can hear me, and I'm not too poppy, and etc. etc. Okay, so a couple of little things. You'll see that the fireplace is now got wood in it, and it's getting there slowly. So next week you'll see the new studio. We'll call it a studio. We're being attended by the cat tonight. We have a couple of news things. So in April, we are still planning on going to Greece to dive in the cenotes of Greece. All the trainings included, all the equipment's included. We've got a couple of spaces for that. Equally well, June, Marsa, I think all the spaces are full in June for Marsa, because I think people are hoping, if not... they're hoping it's all going to be kind of able to go to Marsa, and we have a yacht trip at the end of June. We've got spaces on that on the 26th, so that's a week's yacht trip around the Ionian Islands with us in June. Free Fest in July, and then September we've got Perseus, and then we're going to the island of Zante, and October, possibly November, we're going to go back to Marsa Alam in the Red Sea. So if any of those trips interest you, ping us a message and we can tell you all about them. Okay, so last week I showed you a couple of these crazy things. So these were the original tags that we had at the dive-offs, the freediving competitions. And a couple of people said, tell some more stories about days of old. So I am going to tell some stories tonight, just a couple of stories. Now, Howard Jones. These stories are all about Howard Jones and how he changed freediving forever. So if you dive now, the stuff that you know about and how to dive comes from Howard Jones. He's the unsung hero of modern freediving. So Howard Jones lives in Cornwall, and he ran some events. He ran the first UK freediving competitions, and he also ran some massive competitions in Cyprus that we'll come to a little bit later. Massive comps. Yes, sorry.
I was picking up the cat.
I've got
she's gone now.
The cat. We have a cat retractor, but no, the cat's gone. Lovely guy, Howard Jones, and the unsung hero of, freediving, modern freediving. But just as an aside, this is a kind of another little aside story. He quit freediving, being involved in organising freediving in 2004, at the end of 2004, and just disappeared. And he used to run Freediver magazine and Freeology, wetsuits and clothing, and it just he pulled out all that. And about 8 years later, maybe 6 years, 8 years later, he was helping a friend out at the dive show, at the London dive show. And one of his friends sold wetsuits, and he was helping out on the stand. And I remember distinctly saw him. And in those days, we had big stands. We had like 15 people working on the no-tank stand. We were doing crazy things down there. And I said to everyone in the morning briefing, I said, okay, there's a guy on that wetsuit stand, and I want you all to go over. His name's Howard Jones, and just kind of go, whoa, you're Howard Jones, and just shake his hand. Just for fun. He won't know why, he'll just do it. And Ian was with us, good friend Ian, was there, and he took this 3 steps above, and And he went over there and got his autograph. There's Howard Jones on the right, and Ian there with proud of Howard Jones's Excel. That was the wetsuit company. He's just helping out a friend there. And Howard didn't even question it. Didn't question the fact that all these people kept coming up and saying, "Hey, you're Howard Jones. Hey, you're Howard Jones." and it was in the second day when his friend who ran this random wetsuit company, why do those people keep coming up and asking for your autograph and asking to shake your hand and stuff? And Howard's like, it's just something. And he had no idea that it was me sending him over there. Cracking times. Anyway, so Howard Jones ran these competitions down in Plymouth. So I did 2 of the British Championships. They're in 2001 and 2002. The 2 that I did. And it's down in Plymouth Sound, so it's the estuary that leads into kind of leads out into the sea. And Howard always used to call it the Big Brown. And there was an industrial barge that he used to know all the commercial divers, and they used to do their commercial dive training on this barge, massive barge just outside the estuary. And there's this deep kind of pit. It's probably still there. And it's about 30 meters deep at high tide. Or low tide, obviously, is tide's about 6 meters or so. So at high tide, 30 meters deep, and Big Brown. So it's like the visibility was shocking. But we went out to this barge and did the competition on this. And one of the years we went, the second year, I believe, we went down warming up. And one of the guys we were with, he put his feet on the bottom as he turned. You couldn't see anything. You could not see anything. You couldn't see. The scary thing was you'd go down and maybe 15 meters down, it just went black and you couldn't see the rope. And this is before lanyards. We didn't have lanyards in these days. So you just kind of made sure you held the rope because you didn't know which direction you were going in. It was not like dark, where you can see the daylight, or people say let a bubble out and see which way it floats, which way is up. You could not see anything at all. Pitch black. One of the guys we were on the training day, we went down and he turned at the bottom and his feet touched the bottom, and he kind of put his feet on the bottom and he came up, and we were chatting about it afterwards in the pub, where we had dinner or wherever it was. And we were saying, I did this depth and it was pitch black. And he went, well, I put my feet on the bottom. Oh well, we must have been quite close to the bottom, because we were all working on the same line. And this old boy was in a restaurant on the table next to us and was leaning over and said, "You talking about freediving on that industrial barge?" We went, yeah, that's where we're freediving, British Championship. And he said, there's a hole there that used to be 10 meters deeper, and we've been throwing rusty metal and rubbish in it for the last 20 years. He said, I wouldn't go anywhere near it. Like there's like rusty metal sticker. We throw rubbish in it. And we all suddenly realised, oh my gosh, he put his feet on it. He could have got caught and snagged. Would not have any idea what had gone on. So we were like, scary times. Anyway, that's just, we tried to block that out on the next day when we were diving. I think probably it was at low tide, when we were doing the training, but at high tide, we weren't anywhere near the bottom. Anyway, competition day, you went down and it disappeared, so you just had to make sure you had the rope in front of you. And I remember distinctly remembering from the training day, you've got a safety diver, you're fine. I think they put a glow stick on the bottom, not that you could see it because you just couldn't see it. But I was like, as long as you've got a line, you've got safety divers, you're good. You are good for this. I went down, did the dive, get to the bottom, tag. I mean, you can't miss 5 of these floating around. You go, yeah, I got that. Boom. You come back up, and a couple of dives after me, The safety divers went, the diver went down, the safety divers went down, and the safety divers come up. But where's the diver? Where's the diver? So the safety diver's going back down, and remember, after 15 meters, you couldn't see anything. Whether there's a diver or a rope, you couldn't see anything. And we were like, okay, this is it. This is bad. And then this person came around the end of this barge. I mean, this barge is massive. It's like 80 meters long barge, massive barge. And he just came around the end. And it was the diver we'd lost. And what he had done, he had come up the rope, come off the rope, and come up underneath the barge, which was, 10 meters wide or whatever it was. A flat bottom barge, hit the bottom of the barge, and then swum one way and come up the other side of the barge and just swum round. And everybody looked at each other and went, well, he made it. White card. And just gave him a white card. And we were like, this is outrageous. But we didn't lose. We didn't lose anybody. And it was all good in the end. But it was close. Crack on. A few months. And I was in Nice, diving with Luc Lefebvre and Guillaume Neri. And they'd come up with this fantastic idea called a lanyard. And I have recreated one of the first lanyards that we had in Nice. Because we were there and we literally saw the first lanyard being made, and Guillaume used it. And this is how it was. So quite long. There's no restrictions on it. Had a locking carabiner because you didn't want it to come off the rope. And at the other end, you had a hangman's noose, which you used to pull up tight because you didn't want it to come off your hand. So that's it. That was the first lanyard. And we all went to Submarine, the local freediving shop, which is also a climbing shop, bought a length of rope and a locking carabiner, and we made our lanyards. And then Guillaume was diving, and he must have been diving, 70, 80 meters, close to the world record at the time. It was a deep dive. And he came back, and he was out of breath. And everybody was laughing because Nice dive like no tanks. You've dived well within your limits so that, you can dive again the next day. There's no point in going near your limits. Just no point. But Guillaume came up out of breath, and they were laughing. Oh, you went too deep. Oh, you're out of breath. And he was like, oh, hang on. And they were like, no, you're out of breath. You went too far. Ha, 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 ha. And he, hang on. And he said, the lanyard, I got tangled on a rope because we didn't have a bottom plate. It was only a training session. The lanyard got tangled, and it stopped at whatever the depth was. And we're talking close to the world record here. Remember, in 2003, the free immersion record, Pierre Frolla, was 73 meters. So nobody was wearing monofins. Nobody was wearing monofins. It was still stereo finning back then. So he was deep. He was close to a world record, and he'd stopped, undone the locking carabiner, unclipped it out of the rope, clipped it high up, done the locking carabiner up, and then come to the surface. We were like, whoa, okay, we need to rethink this. First off, we don't want a locking carabiner. We want to be able to take it off and not have to unlock it. So, first thing, we all went back to Decathlon, Submarine, bought a non-locking carabiner. And the other thing was, we thought that this system here was probably not quick release and not safe to have. So we all got bands, and we started with ropes, and then we literally put a leather carabiner on this end, clipped it to you, so you could unclip. And then later on, people started putting spinnaker shackles, which I still think is dangerous. But that's a heck of a lot less dangerous than no lanyard or tying yourself onto a rope. So that's the story of lanyards. That's where lanyards came from. And anyway, so that kind of followed on. And then we went to Cyprus, which Howard Jones, again, was organising this. He said to everybody, I'm going to organise a big freediving competition. Everybody said, yeah, you can't do it. There's not enough freedivers in the world, not enough interest, not enough anything. But he did it. And the second Cyprus had 174 competitors, which at the time was, I mean, like when we were down in Plymouth, there was like 10, 15 competitors, something in that sort of order. So to scale up to 180 was incredible. Anyway, 2003, Cyprus. Howard said, everybody's got to wear lanyards. Remember, the year before his competition, somebody got lost. Somebody without lanyard came up on the wrong side of the barge, or came up under the barge, and it was close. We were worried. So Howard said, no, we're going to have lanyards. And Ida said, no, you can't make people wear lanyards. It's not, yes, some people are playing with them in Nice and stuff, but you can't have lanyards. You cannot call it an AIDA competition if you have lanyards. And Howard said, fine, we're having lanyards. You don't have to make it an AIDA comp. We'll call it a Freeology World Championships, and we'll just do it. And this was literally the week before the competition, or maybe even like while all the athletes were there. I was helping out with the organisation a little bit, so I'm kind of privy to some of the stuff that was going on, and I had kind of went away and said, he's really going to do it. He's going to have a world championships, and just. So they came back and said, okay, you can have lanyards, and still call it an AIDA competition. So that's how Howard Jones crowbarred lanyards into the rules. He made it a rule. He said he's not going to have any sort of safety protocols going awry there. It's happening. He also, the second year, changed the rules about surfacing and surface protocol, which is a story for another day. But it went from, before that, you'd come up, you'd have to stare at the judge. And if you had a shake, that's it, red card. You'd stare at the judge. And in fact, the ladies wore red lipstick. I remember distinctly. How I found out they were wearing red lipstick. Red lipstick was because you're trying to convince the judge you're okay. Okay? So if you're like, red lipstick, and then you have a little bit of a shake, you're more likely to get away with it than coming up with blue lips and going, and then having a shake. Okay, so it's all in the presentation. This is in the old rules. And the reason I found out was one of his competitions, one of Howard Jones's competitions down in Plymouth. In fact, both of them. The static was in a small pool of seawater that was right next to the sea, and it was freezing. And just around, I don't know what it was, a plunge pool. I think it probably washed equipment in it or something. It was not a swimming pool as such, just a round pool. And everybody complained. The second year he said, "Don't worry, it's heated now." Oh, that's right. And it's freezing cold last year. It's heated now. We turned up and bless him, he'd just put a tarpaulin over the top and was hoping the sun would heat it up. We're talking about Cornwall here, you know. The likelihood of sun coming is unlikely. So it's still freezing. Anyway, but the ladies were coming up and they weren't blue from the cold. They had lovely red lips. And this is because in those days they wore red lipstick, or you came up and you looked away from the judge. You looked away from the judge, had your whatever, then came back, I'm fine. Which is why today the rule still says when you come up you must face the judge. Okay? It's because people turned away to hide the fact that they may have a sandbar. Okay? So that's why that rule was put in, and it's still in there today. You must look at the judge. Okay? Or face the judge. Okay? And then obviously there's all the arguments. Well, he was looking here, he wasn't quite looking at me, but you have to face the judge so they can see your face and make sure you're not kind of having a sandbar. Anyway, so that's how Howard Jones changed the rules and put in the surface protocols that we have today. I haven't even told you how he did it. Well, he just said it was rubbish, that everybody would come up, you'd get your card, and then everybody protested. In the first Cyprus, there was a queue of people down the corridor in the evening waiting to see the judges to protest. Because, well, I know I nodded, I kind of waved to my friend, somebody said, "Are you okay?" I went, "Yes," and you counted as a sound. All these reasons why, and he said, it was just too wishy-washy. And he said, if somebody sets a world record, we want to know at the end of the competition, world record. So he changed all the rules and said, okay, when you come up, you've got, and at the time I think they made it 20 seconds and they changed it to 15 or whatever it was. But you've got a certain time to come up, do these surface protocols, and pretty much you get a white card, you're clean. Okay. Yes, there are a few kind of protests. But he also said that to protest, you have to put €100 in the pot, and if you lose, it goes to charity. If you win, you get it back. So instantly cut down. So the second Cyprus, there was, a couple of protests in the evening, but these were protests, people saying, the depth was set wrong, or the tag was whatever, kind of not in the right place, or whatever. It was just tiny things. Whereas the year before, it was red card, and everybody was protesting to get a white card. So he shortened the surface protocol to make it actually there, because he was saying if it's ever going to get on telly, you need a winner then and there. In the same way that any other sport, the 100 meters, that you have a winner and you celebrate. And later on, they may argue about the wind or whatever, but effectively you have a winner on the day. So that's how Howard Jones changed the rules for better, for what we have now, put in lanyards, and why he put in lanyards. So a big up to Howard Jones for basically setting up modern freediving today. So there's a picture again of Ian getting Howard Jones's autograph at the dive show when Howard didn't have no idea why people kept coming up to him and asking him for his autograph. So yeah, anybody who's any of those competitions down in Fort Bovey Sound, hi, hope you're still diving. It would be good to meet up again. And if Howard, for some bizarre reason, Howard Jones gets to watch this, we are not worthy. We are not worthy. Thank you very much, sir. You are the unsung hero of modern freediving. Message me if you want some more stories next week, or if you want a training exercise, or if you want some technical stuff. I've got all three waiting to be done in the next few weeks, so you can decide what you want. Do you want more stories? Do you want something technical, or do you want an exercise live on Monday night, next Monday? I've been Marcus Greatwood. This has been the NTX live stream. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you next week. Ciao, ciao.